Welcome to Framed. I'm Janice Irwin, and today's guest is conceptual artist Hannes Brunner. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi. So happy to be here.
Good. So, how do you feel about being called an artist?
Yeah, well, when I go through the streets and they call me an artist or I have to introduce myself as an artist, it
Mm-hmm.
feels always funny and strange. But on some level, okay, it gives you a categorization that okay, you're out there somewhere. And, but more often I also deny it. But if you call me now here an artist, I would say, no, I'm not.
Okay.
Although, sure, one thinks nonstop about it or one works with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that makes it then more interesting for that what one is about to do than not just okay definition. But hey, it's general. What means like a computer scientist
Okay, I
nowadays, right? I
know.
mean, it doesn't say anything anyway. Or you have these other definitions. What's called like assistant manager, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
so. Or what are you here? I mean,
Yeah.
you're
The moderator right now,
a
but
moderator
otherwise the
manager,
studio
right?
manager, yeah.
So this is also these definitions.
Mm-hmm.
Is that now a lifetime decision? Are you devoted to that, or is that
Hmm.
So this is
Well, tell us a little bit about your background because I think you're one of the most interesting people. You evolve and you grow and you expand, and
yeah.
I think it
Well,
all comes out in creative ways.
oh, okay. I feel very flattered about that. Well, the thing is this: it's my relation, or you even can ask me my relationship to the United States, right? I mean, it's. I came here from at the beginning, at the end of the '80s, through some grants and stipends from Europe, and I actually, I do must say, I actually never lived on a permanent base here. Or it might be there was a period beginning of the 90s where I pretty steadily lived in New York and the Lower East Side, but uh, I always was connected to Europe and basically worked through that or had work going on, concepts and projects which I developed in Europe, but basically also as a project towards the United States.
Hmm.
It's really kind of might be alive in the ocean somehow. I don't know.
Well, you started your life in Switzerland, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it was just an opportunity then come to the United States.
Mm.
But and so whenever I'm here, there's a lot of things I feel totally comfortable with, or I even discuss a lot of things, even issues, what I'm working about here. But I somehow know that I need to both connect the other connection too,
Mm.
right? So I need this other approach of being able to kind of evaluate or make researches on both ends. So that's so the ideal situation is actually, which basically almost happened actually last winter, where I was able to realize a pretty huge project, which I called Suburban Entity.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. It's on actually www.suburbanentity1word.com. So take a look at that and you'll be able
Shall
to
I
get
show it?
real
Here
particulars.
is this is the website.
That's
So,
great.
but so in order that you don't get too surprised, the website is at the same time a research site,
Mhm.
which I built it up during the research when it was not a project being exhibited in exhibition spaces, and there is the website is at the same time right now an archive. And to tell a little bit more about it, I started thinking about this actually after making a lot of other projects about sculptural installations in museum spaces. Slowly, in the middle of the 90s, I was more concerned about contents and contents in a social political way. And so now I have to make a curve around. I was able, even also through a New York gallery's storefront, art and architecture,
Ah.
being invited here in New York and at the Korean Biennial in Gwangju. And the issue was working about cities, and so I liked that a lot. And I worked about a huge housing project in Rome. So I'm just getting a little bit wide in the social context. So this housing project in Rome was a 1 kilometer long building, 8,000 people live in. And now in order to represent that in a white cube era, in an artist space, I didn't necessarily just wanted to make photos or movies about this and documentaries and show how, a disaster this building is and condemn the architects and all these things. I rather wanted to go with my whole possibilities, communicate with the people, and not being there as somebody, who comes and grabs everything, what they actually don't want to show, rather try to get them involved. So with all the funds I could raise for this project, I started building up a video group with equipment, gave them the whole equipment in order that they could do their own videos.
Wow. When I was looking at the website,
Right.
it seems almost like a spider web where you start going down one
Right.
route and it connects to another, and it's just phenomenal how involved it is, or it's almost
Right.
like the anatomy,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And now you have you've studied architecture also, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Because I mean, the forms that were inside, like an installation that you can
Right,
see,
right.
you designed all of that too, right?
Yeah, right. Well, but let me get just quickly back to this other project, which was 1 Mile, 1 Life in Rome, because it shows a little bit more clearly what I tried to do. This involvement of the people, then going back into the museum space, where basically it is a museum installation. Suburban entity itself, 1 Life, 1 Mile was about the disastrous social housing project in cities.
So that's preceded Suburban
Right,
Entity.
and Suburban Entity was then rather about these things, how corny one can get to, be in the suburban areas. Honestly, I live myself in suburban area in Germany, and the most time also now I move around in suburban areas in the United States. And I think it's fairly interesting as kind of a development of the 20th century, and I think basically probably Western society, 80% of all the people live in suburban areas. And there's a funny saying, when I moved first to suburban areas in the mid-90s, I was like, yeah, all right, the cities usually are neurotic and suburbs are perverse, right? So that's anyway, I started thinking about that, how is actually life there? And the suburban entity was then rather based, how much actually the way how we live, how we install ourselves in houses, how we design our environment, how we influence, how much is that influenced through the pictures we see in the media, and how much actually the media gets the influence through that, how they see what is going on in suburban
And that's
area.
part of the research that is on the website
exactly.
too.
This is basically this influence, I mean, how much actually we sit in front of the media in order to get kind of a cultural influence, how we shape our life, and how much the media gets the influence through that. This kind of going together, as I saw it, as two different things. And through that, sure, it was not just now making researches, getting the own impression, but the big intention was really also get the people involved.
Yes.
Living in different suburban areas in Europe. I mean, basically, as I observed 3 different spots, 3 different areas. One here in New York and Long Island, basically. One close to Hamburg in Germany, and one in Switzerland.
So some of the components to Suburban Entity are the installation.
Right.
That's inside a museum space or gallery space,
right.
correct? Then you have the research component
Right.
that you're studying, do we affect media or does media affect us?
Right.
You also have those clips of the people.
Right.
So what part is that? Describe that a little bit.
The clip that came up then later as a way to have something more interactive with the people who live in different areas or are generally interested in kind of participating in the project. And
So you went around and videotaped them?
Right, but it was not that I videotaped them. What usually I do is I go around and get these people involved through internet or whatever, or through other people. Okay, they want to participate, and I show them one episode of a soap opera.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
that
This
is,
cool.
and then they and I watch them with them, and then after that I usually say, okay, let's just find a spot in your house where you want to be taped. And instead of that, I make an interview where they usually tell me what's going on in their life, you know, with their family or whatever, you know, and or their social problems with the neighborhoods, you know, and all these things. I tell them, look, you identify now as one person of the soap opera, and they start telling, oh yeah, you know, yesterday my ex-husband came over again, you know, and you know, my sons, they don't want to talk with him anymore, and you know, and I'm kind of really, and I lost my job and everything, you know. They start really talking like this, and this had then two reasons, which was fairly interesting for me, because one was, there were certain people who actually, when I started telling them, look, we're going to watch now the soap opera, especially in Germany, they said, well, you know, we don't watch that crap, you know. It was really like this. They said, look, we don't watch. All right, I do it for you. All right, and they watched it, but then really you realized, first of all, they were lying.
Yeah, right. They knew the characters, right?
They knew the characters, and and then they really got into it because it was like kind of a video therapeutical thing, you know, because it was like they could identify themselves with somebody else, but it was their choice.
Okay.
And then they got totally into it.
So, like, say a soap opera, Young and the Restless. I was while you were speaking, I was trying to remember a soap that I could think of a character's name. Jill, who's been on for 20-some years. Okay, so say you and I sat and we watched Young and the Restless, and Jill's one of the characters. Now, you ask me to identify by the story of Jill, or maybe the look, see, oh, she looks the most like me, or her life's the most like me, or they can just pick who they...
They can pick, you know,
whatever.
I mean, usually it's even, I had some participants who were on one level very interested even to change sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, then they really were
so
playing,
some of the...
I mean, some women, they really were playing the role of
really?
men,
Oh.
of husbands.
Okay. Oh.
And through that, I mean, I have to go back then a little bit, because at the end there are these short clips.
Okay.
You know, an episode who goes usually half an hour,
Yeah.
and they tell the story of that person in probably 1 to 2 minutes, not longer. But this is also because, as most actors of soap operas are not really professional actors, or some of them, sure. I mean, I don't want to be any
Hannes
kind of
will be
rude
getting like
thing.
hate mail, you know, from
Right,
other soap
right.
fans.
No, I mean, I know some are really
They're
great.
famous actors.
Sure, they're very famous.
Yes.
But I mean, soap opera also plays with this direct role, you know, like reality TV or so, and this is also what I thought to produce with these participants, because you feel a little bit shyness inhibited, a little bit, you know, when you see them. And then these videos, they get basically projected into the museum spaces, into these little huts.
Oh, they're in the little hut. That's what it looked like on
Right.
the website. It's video projection in the hut.
Right, in these, you know, kind of igloo-like, Quonset house-like model buildings, which have no interior. It's just the digital projection.
Oh.
Because
Now,
it's just a virtual picture, because that's basically also what I wanted to refer,
picture. Oh,
that you don't
okay.
have to, it's all about, the whole installation is about life or life atmosphere. But the atmosphere itself is a virtual projection. It is, you know, all the details of like the designing, how the people live. It's just the projection. It's not real. I mean, there is no interior design, and there's no chairs in it in these houses. There's just a rough construction carpet. There's nothing. There's just these projections.
Now, can the viewers that go to the installation go in those huts?
They can, but
tell
you
the
can
hut, they're
crawl
low.
in.
You'd have to,
You have to crawl in. But usually, how they are designed, they're designed like this, that you get a little bit this voyeuristic view.
So, can you look in from standing up?
You can look in, you know. It's like looking over the fence at neighbor's house, you know, or look, you know, look at night through windows and see, oh, what they're watching TV there. Oh, all right. What kind of flowers she has in the dresser? Oh, do they still watch TV at 12 o'clock at night? You know, what they're drinking. So it's rather that I played a little bit with this voyeurism thing, and then you know you stand outside of these huts in these Quansen model buildings in the museum exhibition, and you get curious what they're talking about, because this is like a 2-minute loop what they're talking, and then they go on, oh, you know, I couldn't leave my kids to them anymore, you know, and he burned up all the kitchen, and you hear all these sayings, what's going on in these houses, you know, you certainly start getting curious.
So when the person, say myself, that we just watched Young and the Restless, now am I going to share with you stories from my life that are similar to the character, or am I telling their story?
No, you choose then one story which just happened in this half hour.
Okay, and I make it like it's me.
Right, and you just actually, and you just change actually the person. I mean, you don't say he was doing this.
Say
or
I was. Like if I was Jill, my husband got killed, and I married this one, and my daughter this, and oh God, it's hysterical. My sister lives in Italy, and some of her friends, actually quite a handful of them all, watch The Bold and the Beautiful, and that's like the American soap over there, and they just love it. Well, it's 3 months behind here, so my sister's assigned my mom to actually clip out like what's happening on The Bold and the Beautiful from the paper here, and she has to send it over there, and then Carol, my sister, is like in the know. You know, so all the people in the village are like, Carol, what's happening? You know, what did this one do? What did that one do? And it's like, you know, a really very important part of their day. And I think, you know, a lot of people, it's television. You know, it's a fantasy and taking your mind off of your everyday thing. But I just crack up because it's like, but I think, too, they have the one American here, it's like on all day. So maybe one certain one isn't as special, but I think that was a great concept, is to use a soap opera for the housing.
Yeah, I mean, what is now, I mean, I'm developing now actually a permanent museum.
Yeah, because, I mean, what's going to happen when you take the installation down?
Well,
I always hate that.
the installation is traveling. I mean, this is the concept of the...
you're traveling.
Because, you know, I see
cool.
I see museums as something which... you don't get many viewers in a museum, but museums are very important because you get kind of a quiet space. So concentrated with certain issues, certain content, certain theories, certain thoughts you put in, and and it's great to get all these participants participate in the installation like this.
And but some of the funding was from Switzerland too, right?
Yeah, most of the funding was from Switzerland. And I mean, it was shown first here last winter in January in Long Island at Long Island University at the Campus Museum, and these modeled houses, basically, you know, they're basically like sets. I mean,
that's what they look like. Yeah.
It's very thin wood. It's very light, and you basically there's almost no nails or screws. It's all Velcro. So basically you can flip them together and then you build them up again. And that's how actually they then just got like transported then to Switzerland there. In May was the second show, and the next
they totally
one will
come
be
apart.
Right.
Simply.
And the next one will be sometime in the middle of next year in Germany, close to Hamburg.
What type of wood did you use?
It's like a
like Luan or something?
I don't know.
No, thinner than that.
It's very thin. I mean, it's like you can bend it like for a guitar. You know? But sure, from outside it looks like a sturdy building.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
And it's just Velcro together.
Yeah, Velcro together. You just flip it over. So
That's
because
pretty
the
neat.
concept is really that these models, they stand, like a circus. They have always used the same temp travel around, or like a rock group has always the same decoration. But the videos, they change.
Oh, they do.
I mean, for instance, here in the United States, I used, I think, only one clip from Germany. And in Switzerland, now there were like 3 from Switzerland, only one from the United States. So that changes then, because what is also a thing is these media, they have an incredible compact of like globalization, as you said now about your Italian friends. But there are certain shows which here take off, but in Europe not.
Yeah, they don't, right?
And that is also an observation which I found really interesting, because in Europe you usually have the tendency, you watch TV and you watch all the American movies and you see, oh wow, but it's something exotic. You see the suburban concept of like wide streets, big cars,
well,
all the murders going on in the front lawn and all these things. And usually this is exotic because actually the setup is not that way.
Well, it's like our news here is really restricted and controlled from the rest of the world. And the same thing in other countries too. It's very filtered information. You feel you're getting all this freedom, you have all this information. We don't. As soon as you leave the country, you find out there's all this other, well, you don't even have to leave the country to find that out, but I think it's like right in your face then when you leave. And like for yourself, I think it'd be like triangular, like your professor in Germany from Switzerland and have funding from there for your project, and then you're here also.
Right.
So
that gives
you're faced with it weekly as you commute.
Yeah, and through that I also get these different perspectives, right? But I do think also this is kind of an interesting perspective for me too, how actually the media affects then the lifestyle, right? I mean, this was also the thing, even coming back a little bit to the soap opera. I mean, you watch a soap opera and you're going to turn on the TV and it's like having a personal meeting.
Yeah, right. Well, and they use a lot of extreme close-ups too.
Right.
So they're right there, you know.
And you say, Seinfeld is I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go now, it's really over. And this is your personal appointment. That's one thing. And the other thing is, okay, you might like somebody who is not from this era here, or you might like a show which is really some kind of an exotic thing. And I would like to pretend probably that as European you're more used to see shows which has really nothing to do with your local surroundings.
Okay.
I do think as media is really more also a part of the daily life here as a production industry, right? Which is great, which is absolutely great. But so one is not really used to see many of like German soap operas, for instance, or things like this. And that is one thing what I a little bit discovered, and that makes it also different when people approach in Europe these things. It makes more like, oh, this is the desire of a better world. You understand? And I know the soap operas here, or all reality TV, they have more like almost like a therapeutical level, because it's more like a mirror life you have. You have this pre-lived life. It's also the whole science, the researchers about soap operas. The people, they're always a little bit worse than you. They're always a little bit in a bad, worse shape, let's say. They're a little bit more downhill than you are, or in a psychological state. Otherwise, it wouldn't make you feel good. You wouldn't watch it anymore.
True. Now, another component to Suburban Entity, too, is you have an email, like people can write in right there on the website, right?
Right. It was also meant, I mean, there was a lot of legwork involved, too, in the Pope project.
I can imagine.
Because, I mean, certain areas, also architecturally looking at things, how they get developed, especially in the 90s through this new urbanism, actually where a lot of style of housing got close. I mean, there was no difference. There's no difference anymore what was built here and what is built over there, which I find really interesting, because you see all kinds of decors, you know, these Victorian decors or other decors or French style decors, and they play around because you really can see the ideal of pure modernism, flat roof. It's an idealistic thing which is probably a minority. It's really major people like just to have these things, and that is also something what made me wonder, you know, whether there is anything what actually one can find in our life also as a kind of an aesthetic, which is actually, you know, gives the shape of our whole country or countryside. And I do think that is also what was another approach on this view. Let's say we have to talk about slowly, not about urbanization or things like this. We have to talk about landscaping. Now, because suburban areas, this is like this spread out thing, you know, which even in Europe, when I first, actually it was funny, when I first started working at the German university, I thought, okay, all right, Germany is just a huge suburb, you know. So that was basically.
Now in Germany, you're a professor.
Yeah.
And you're teaching there college students, or?
Yeah, it's but basically I mainly make like research projects with special funding through for internet applications at universities. So it's like, I mean, basically building up platforms for teaching possibilities. I mean, that's basically what I now used to do through the last 3 years. Yeah.
So in addition to being a professor in Germany, what's your next conceptual artist project going to be?
My next project is actually, there are two things. One is really building up a suburban entity as a steady museum, but as a local, it's like a provocation in a suburban area.
Cool.
Because suburban areas are areas which, you know, seem to be, there's
just
no
growing
nature.
And growing.
It's no nature, as Willem Flusser says, but there's, and the culture is an entire thing.
And
you
it's affecting our environment. I mean, it's changed, the political standings are changing, everything.
And you have a lot of like, you know, people usually don't really go out there. And that's why it's a little bit the provocation, what I try to do now. And that can be anywhere, either here in Germany or Switzerland, but that's basically what I'm kind of working on.
Okay, Hannes, I'm so glad that you came up here to visit with us and do the show.
Hopefully you can, might be look at these things a couple times and see what's going on then.
So look for Hannes Brunner. You can see his latest project at www.suburbanentity.com, one word. And stay tuned. There'll be more next time. Bye-bye.